Hi, the question will appear on your screen in few seconds. Please pause this video to solve the question on your own, and once you are done, resume the video to check the solution. Here is the question. Let's now start with passage analysis. Only a reduction of 10% in the number of scheduled flights using Greentown's airport will allow the delays that are so common there to be avoided. So we are talking about a 10% reduction in number of flights which are scheduled from this Greentown's airport. And what will this do? And here's the word only. We don't need more than this. Only 10% reduction, it will allow the delays that are so common to be avoided. So this can be done to avoid the delays which are common. All right, let's read further. Hevelia airstrip, 40 miles away, would, if upgraded and expanded, be an attractive alternative for fully 20% of the passengers using Greentown Airport. So here we were talking about Greentown Airport. Now we are talking about Hevelia Airstrip. Now Hevelia Airstrip is 40 miles away, right? So the distance between these two has been given. Would, if upgraded and expanded. So this is a requirement that it needs to be upgraded and expanded. And whatever is being claimed is considering that if it is upgraded and expanded, then what would happen? It will be an attractive alternative for fully 20% of the passengers. So here the percentage that was given to us was in terms of number of flights. Now we are saying that this airstrip can fully accommodate 20% of passengers who are using the Greentown airport. Nevertheless, experts reject the claim that turning Hevelia into a full service airport would end the chronic delays at Greentown. So here is the conclusion by the experts, and the conclusion is that this is not going to happen because they have rejected the claim. So turning Hevelia into a full service airport would end the chronic delays at Greentown. This is something that is not going to happen. They have not given any reason here to explain why they think so, why they think this cannot be done, because we know that 10% reduction can avoid the delay, it can avoid these delays. And Hevelia, if it is upgraded and expanded, in that case, it can accommodate 20% of passengers. So even considering these two things, why cannot the Hevelia airstrip, which is fully developed, why it cannot end the chronic delays? Right? So we need to think about it. Why? What is their logic? So here we can see that one thing that we saw here was that we needed a reduction of 10% in number of flights, and Hevelia can accommodate 20% of the passengers. So is this 20% of passengers, this number, is it equivalent to number to 10% reduction in flights? If we send these 20% passengers to Hevelia airport, then will it actually result in 10% reduction in number of flights? Because there's a conversion. It is not just about number of passengers in both the things. We have to see whether this number of percentage of passengers, it matches the percentage of flights. So that is one thing, right? So that is one thing here, the logical gap, or rather it can be the logic why they reject this claim. One logic can be that 20% of passengers, they account for less than 10% of flights, and we are not sure if less than 10% would have any effect. We know that even 10% can have that impact, but less than 10% will that have it or not? So that is one thing. The second thing, we know that yes, there is capacity to accommodate 20% passengers, but even with the capacity to accommodate these many passengers and all the upgrades, it is a good airport. What if passengers do not prefer coming here, do not prefer this airport, right? They get most of their flights from Greentown, or maybe the flights that are scheduled from Hevelia airstrip, they are not very, the timing is not very convenient. It can operate only at certain time, which is usually not convenient, or there can be some other reason. So this kind of logic is being used by the experts to conclude that this airport cannot end the chronic delays at Greentown. So with this understanding, let's move to bridge table. If your understanding of the passage was correct and complete, mark a tick here. If you missed anything here, mark a cross here and write down exactly what did you miss and why did you miss that. Again, if you understood the conclusion correctly, mark a tick here. You can proceed further. But if you missed anything here in the conclusion, that what is, maybe you misunderstood the conclusion that the claim is being rejected, you thought that it is being supported or anything else, whatever it was, write down your mistake and why did that mistake happen. With that, let's proceed to understanding what the correct answer choice should convey. Now, this question says, which of the following, if true, most helps to justify the expert's position? So we have to find a strengthener for the expert's position, which means we have to find a new piece of information which conveys that turning Hevelia into a full service airport would not end the chronic delays at Greentown. That is what the correct answer choice will convey. If you pre-think, you can think of some scenarios. You already understand the logic here. So you can, based on that logic, you can come up with scenarios that can support the expert's conclusion. One such scenario can be that 20% passengers account for only 5% flights at the Greentown airport. So in that case, we know that even if these 20% passengers are moved to the other airport, the chronic delays at Greentown will not reduce. So this is one of the scenarios. You can come up with more scenarios and that would be a part of pre-thinking. Even if you do not pre-think, you have a clear understanding of what you should be expecting from the answer choices, and you can move to the answer choice analysis. So before that, let's update our bridge table. Now, if you identified what the correct answer choice needs to convey correctly, mark a tick here. However, if you skipped this step or you faltered here, mark a cross and write down the reason. This step is very important because it reminds you that this is what you are looking for. You don't get confused when you are looking for the answer choices. You know what the correct answer choice will convey in terms of the conclusion that is present in front of you, not just a generic understanding. Even if you are not pre-thinking, this step is very important. Let's move to answer choice analysis now. Choice A: turning Hevelia into a full service airport would require not only substantial construction at the airport itself, but also the construction of new access highways. So what is this choice telling us? It is giving us requirements for converting the Hevelia airstrip to a full service airport. And the way it is written, it seems to convey that there is a lot of work required. Now, if you thought that this choice presents a challenge related to the conclusion, because it presents a challenge related to converting Hevelia into a full service airport, therefore, that is how it could have supported the experts. And you selected this choice, then you made a big mistake here. And this is going to be a big learning for you. So, the conclusion says that turning Hevelia into a full service airport, this action would not end the chronic delays at Greentown. Right? This is what the conclusion is. So, the conclusion already considers this action has been done. That is, if this action is done, if Hevelia is converted into a full service airport, what will happen after that? The conclusion or the claim is what will happen after that. It is not concerned with how easy or difficult it is to convert Hevelia into a full service airport. And the learning that you have here is, if your conclusion is that the plan, if implemented, will be successful, then anything which is related to implementation, any piece of information, new piece of information, which is related to implementation of the plan, cannot support or weaken the conclusion. Because the conclusion is about the plan being successful if it is implemented. It is not talking about how easy or difficult it is to implement the plan. So always understand the conclusion very carefully. What you need to strengthen or weaken. If you misunderstood the conclusion, if you did not understand that the conclusion here already considers that it has been converted, and what will happen after that, that is being discussed here. If you missed that part, you are very likely to fall in this trap. And this is a very common trap in strengthener and weakener questions. So always understand the conclusion very clearly. And wherever we are talking about the success of a plan, if it is implemented, make sure you evaluate the choices that are talking about implementation very carefully, considering that any challenges related to implementation or anything that conveys that implementation is easy or difficult, that may not be related to the plan being successful. that may not be related to the conclusion. With this, let's update our bridge table. So if you selected choice A, first of all, question yourself, did you understand the meaning? If there was any misunderstanding here, mark a cross here and write down the exact reason here. Then, secondly, did you gauge the alignment here? Did you actually think, did you actually try to match this choice with what the correct answer choice needs to convey? Now, here, one thing is that you did not do that, right? The second thing is that you tried doing it, but you misinterpreted the impact of the answer choice. You did not identify that implementation is not what is being discussed. And that is what is related to understanding the meaning of the conclusion as well as to understanding the impact of the answer choice. So write down the exact reason here. And with this, let's proceed to choice B now. Choice B, a second largely undeveloped airstrip close to Greentown Airport would be a more attractive alternative than Hevelia for many passengers who now use Greentown. So what is this choice doing? This choice is telling that this is the Greentown Airport, this is Hevelia Airport, 40 miles away, but there is another airport which is again undeveloped airstrip. Okay, so it is similar to HA. This is also undeveloped airstrip. We have another XYZ airstrip, which is, let's say, 20 miles away. So it is close to Greenhouse Airport, would be more attractive alternative than Hevelia for many passengers. So this particular airport will be more attractive. Now, does that mean that developing this, if this is developed, then the delay will not reduce? Does that mean that this delay will not reduce? The answer is no. Even if this is more attractive, even if the alternative option is more attractive, it does not indicate that the original option will not work. So XYZ is more attractive does not tell you that HA will not be successful. Now, this is another very commonly tested trap in strength in questions. This kind of choice can work for conclusions such as HA is not the best option. In that case, an alternative option, which is more attractive, can strengthen the conclusion. So that is why it is again very important to understand what the conclusion exactly is saying, since our conclusion is not about being the best option, it is whether or not HA can reduce the crowding delays at Greentown. This choice does not strengthen it, and it is the incorrect answer choice. So if you selected choice B, please go and update your bridge table. Let's now move to choice C. Choice C. Hevelia Airstrip lies in a relatively undeveloped area, but would, if it became a full service airport, be a magnet for commercial and residential development. So this choice is talking about this condition that if this happens, if it becomes a full service airport, Hevelia Airstrip, which is right now in a relatively undeveloped area, it would attract a lot of commercial and residential development. All right. So this choice seems to be conveying an advantage of developing the Hevelia Airstrip. Now, if you thought that because here is an advantage of developing Hevelia airstrip and that is why it supports the conclusion, you were wrong here. This advantage has nothing to do with our conclusion. Our conclusion says that if Hevelia is developed into full service airport, it will not end the chronic delays at Greentown. Whether it attracts more development, commercial development, residential development, or it does not attract that kind of development has nothing to do with our conclusion. So this advantage does not increase our belief in the conclusion, and that is why this choice is incorrect. If you selected choice C, please go and update your bridge table. Let's come to choice D now. Choice D. If an airplane has to wait to land, the extra jet fuel required adds significantly to the airline's costs. So this choice is telling us a disadvantage of having a plane waiting to land. So more jet fuel would be required. Now, yes, this is a disadvantage of delay, but that does not in any way indicate that Hevelia Airport cannot help in reducing this delay or ending this chronic delay. So this is completely irrelevant to our conclusion and it is therefore incorrect. If you selected choice D, please go back to your bridge table and update it accordingly. Let's move to choice E now. Choice E, several airlines use Greentown as a regional hub so that most flights landing at Greentown have many passengers who then take different flights to reach their final destinations. So this choice is saying that Greentown, if this is GTA, then this Greentown is used as a regional hub by several airlines. And what does that mean? It has been explained here that most of the flights that land at Greentown Airport, let's say there are 5 flights landing at Greentown Airport from destinations 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, most of them, so more than half of them, would have many passengers who then take different flights to reach their destination. So they get down at GTA and then they take another flight to their next destination. So this choice is conveying that a lot of passengers who are coming to GTA right now, they are taking their next connecting flight from GTA. You have understood the meaning. Now let's understand what is the impact of this information. So if this information is true, if there are a lot of passengers who are taking connecting flights from GTA, then would they be interested in moving to Hevelia even if it is developed? The answer is no. The passengers who have to take these connecting flights, they will not prefer moving to Hevelia. They will prefer coming to GTA because they can take their connecting flight from there itself. From Hevelia, they will have to travel to GTA. So their preference for the airport would not change. They would still continue to prefer GTA. Now, what does that mean? We do not have the exact percentage of these passengers. Still, the way this choice is written, we know that many passengers in most of the flights. So it indicates that there are a lot of passengers. And if there are a lot of passengers who would not prefer the Hevelia airport, it means that there are chances that Hevelia airport will not be able to end the chronic delays at Greentown. And that is how this choice strengthens our conclusion. Now notice that even though we do not have the exact percentage of passengers getting down here for taking the connecting flights, this choice still acts as a strengthener. Why? If you have this question in your mind that does this choice prove the conclusion to be correct, because we do not have the exact percentage of passengers. And so, can we be sure about the conclusion? And that is why you rejected this answer choice? Then this is a learning for you. This is not something that a strengthener needs to do. A strengthener does not have to prove the conclusion to be correct. All that a strengthener needs to do is it has to bring in a new piece of information, which this choice is doing. Also, it needs to increase your belief in the conclusion. So this choice also makes you believe more in the conclusion that yes, okay, if that is the case, if there are a lot of passengers who want to take their connecting flights from GTA, they may not prefer going to Hevelia Airport, and in that way, Hevelia Airport may not be able to end the chronic delays at Greentown. And that is why this is a correct strengthener. If you rejected choice E, come back to your bridge table and answer this question. Why did you reject the correct answer choice? Did you not understand the meaning? Did you not think about the impact of this answer choice? Or were you confused because this choice does not prove the conclusion to be correct? So did you get confused there, or was there some other reason? So we are done with this question now, and you have your updated bridge table that tells you what kind of mistakes you made in this question. Hope you will be able to take the corrective actions for these mistakes and not repeat these mistakes in the other questions. If you need any help deciding the corrective actions, do let us know.